Okay, tonight spent a few minutes looking at troubleshooting Windows and applications. And the troubleshooting process is going to be about the same for whatever you're troubleshooting. Windows has some specific tools. Applications kind of comes around to what did you do and how to ask people, what did you do nicely without offending them? What's the last thing? Is it can you reproduce it? One of the really kind of neat questions in there, did somebody else use the computer, gives them an out. Because you know what they're going to say, what happened? All I did was turn it on. I just turned it on. I didn't do anything. Sometimes things come back later when you least expect it. You know, most of you don't remember candid camera. When you least expect it, you're on smile, you're on candid camera. It's happened to me. I'll do something on a machine that's working fine, and 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, my wife says, such and such isn't working. What did you do? Well, I didn't do anything. And then, 2 or 3 hours later, oh yeah, I did. 3 weeks ago I did this that caused that. That's what documentation is about. Because are you going to remember on 600 machines that 4 months ago you did this to that? Are your users going to remember that? And the answer is they may have just turned it on. The objectives here, learn about Windows tools that help you troubleshoot Windows and Windows application problems. There are a lot of tools available, a lot of tools built into Windows, other tools that are available third-party, a number of free tools, and you should take advantage of them. SysInternals is the one that I've talked about several times. There are other companies that have free tools for Windows to help you in the troubleshooting process, to help you in the maintenance. Take advantage of them. Build yourself a toolkit, because most of you are going to go into an environment that users are using Windows. I know James is going to go someplace else, but that's okay, because he's in the ET, wants to go to programming, right? Something like that. No, he doesn't want to do programming.
No, I'm getting into
Programmable logic, yeah, PLCs, and that's really a neat area. But the rest of you are going to, whether you like it or not, probably be involved in the Windows world for some time, because that's what industry's using. That's what companies use. Why don't they use Linux? Linux has got its upsides and its downsides. Linux is a really, really nice system. The issue with Linux is if you want to install something on it, you got to go to every machine. If I want to install Microsoft Office on 600 Windows machines, I go create a policy, and it does it automatically. Why don't they just fix that? It's not that simple.
What do you think about the policies used?
Well, when Novell, which is now defunct, I think, bought SUSE, that's what most of us who did NetWare at the time thought they were going to do, but they could never make it work. Windows has policies and the ability to push things out. The other thing that corporate doesn't like about Linux, it's free, right? It's open source. Who owns it? If you lose $10 billion worth of data, who are you going to sue? If you lose $10 billion worth of data with Microsoft, who are you going to sue? Microsoft. That's another reason that corporations don't like Linux. But you're going to be in the Windows world, so build yourself a toolkit to troubleshoot and fix it. Strategies and steps you can take to troubleshoot and solve any computer problem. And it appears that there are some of these kinds of questions on both parts of the A+. What are the steps? You did this. What's the next step in the troubleshooting process? This is one, just go ahead and get it down to where you know what the steps are, so that when they ask those questions, you can answer them. How to troubleshoot the blue screen of death for an improper shutdowns. The blue screen of death, the way you troubleshoot it is usually not good. You'll get error messages, and you're going to have to go make some configuration changes, because typically what Windows will do is reboot on those errors. That's the default. And about the time you find out where on the screen the error message is, it reboots and it's gone away. And it'll come back and you don't have enough time to read it, so you'll have to change those. Improper shutdowns, the real thing there, and I'll admit guilt to improper shutdowns on multiple occasions, is I usually just tell it to start normally. You can run a disk check if you want. Improper shutdowns means that the power went out, or you just pushed the power button and turned it off instead of doing an orderly shutdown using the shutdown. The shutdown writes back all the registry information, and it really is the proper way to do it. Troubleshoot problems with applications. Troubleshoot problems with applications the same way you troubleshoot problems with Windows. The process is the same. What are we going to do with these things? Table 12.1 is a quick reference of many of the troubleshooting tools, and I found it in one of the online books, and hopefully here made a copy of it. And when they say a number of them, this says this is 1,529 words. If we go down the list, Action Center, if you get that little red flag down in the right-hand corner, you need to look and see what's going on. It comes up when there is something wrong. Advanced boot options, the F8 key. The F8 key on startup will give you some options like going to safe mode, use the last known good configuration, and some other things that are only available in servers, in Active Directory servers, like to restore Active Directory. Backup and restore. If you don't back up data, and you may not back it up at home, that's okay. And when you lose all your pictures and your wife divorces you, that's your problem.
Well, you won't have any pictures making that.
Data is the only thing that you really should back up. There are, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that probably off-site replication is about as good as anything to do that. It's quick, you don't have to worry about it. There's lots of places that will give you free storage that you can replicate to your hard drive, and if the hard drive fails, when the hard drive fails, you have a copy off-site someplace. Backing up doesn't do any good. You take your little plug-in USB drive and push that right there on the computer. If the hard drive fails, you're okay. If you have a true disaster, fire, flood, truck drives through the wall, whatever else, then the original copy and the backup copy both get destroyed at the same time. So backups should be someplace else. Cloud's as good a place as any. The problem with the cloud is there are occasionally some issues with these guys, a la whoever it was, and I don't remember which was the one that just got shut down. Well, it didn't just get shut down, 6 or 8 months ago. There were people that said, oh, they're a haven for illegal software. It may have been, but there were legitimate users on that site too. Not long after they shut them down, there was a company, servers crashed, and their backup was in the cloud, and they couldn't get their backup back. So be careful about those things when you do it, when you put it there. Again, there are a number of providers that will give you quite a bit of free storage. A box was 5 gig now? 10 gig. 10 gig. That's a lot of pictures. 10 gig. Dropbox will give you free storage. Those are the two that come to mind immediately. There are others also that will give you free storage. Cox, I think, gives you a gig or something like that. So do those things. Check disk is something that should be run occasionally. Cipher here for encryption. And we can keep going down the list. This is in your book. I just want to give you an idea of how many of these things are available. There are also some dangerous ones in here. I just saw regedit, registry edit. Reliability monitor, you can go back to a date and time and see when things started failing. And then you can see what happened at that time. Did you install a piece of software or something like that? Resource monitor, what's taking the resources. The run as is something that is handy. That's called a secondary log on. We can run it as a different user to see if you get different results. One of the things that administrators get trapped into sometimes is they'll install something, do something, and it works just fine for them because they're an administrator. But it doesn't just work just fine for the regular user because they don't have all that power. So be careful of things like that. Safe mode's part of that, part of the startup options that we can get to with the F8 key. This goes on and on and on, and again, that list is in your book. You can take a look at it. But there are a lot of tools that are there that are built in, already available to you. The strategies, and you'll use a couple of them in the labs. The strategies here kind of go back to, what is it, the Hippocratic Oath? First, do no harm. First, do no harm. Don't make it worse. How can you make it worse? Well, you can dig deeper holes. Be sure you got a copy of the data before you go doing any changes to the hard drive, because you may make all the data go away, and it'd be handy to be able to get the data back. Not to compound the problem through actions before discovering as much as you can about the problem, and ask questions until you understand the source of the problem, until you think you understand the source of the problem. You're going to ask questions. When you start talking to users, you have to be careful the way you ask those questions, so that you don't make them feel inferior, like they did something wrong. They may not have done something wrong. We may have done something wrong. We may have sent a policy out that did something. We may have let a virus in. We may have not protected it the way that we should have. Systematic method used by most experts introduced in this chapter. Refer to the diagram on the next slide, so let's just go to the next slide. This is also in the book. We're going to start here. Question the end user and back up data as needed. Question the end user. What you're trying to get here are the symptoms. What was it like before? And what's happening now? What might they have done? Did they install some software? Did they download something? Did they get tricked into installing something that they really shouldn't have? If you have your policies configured correctly, installing software shouldn't be an issue, because you shouldn't allow your users to install software on your corporate machines. Okay, so we go there. We're going to examine the system and ask more questions. What's going on with the system when we do that? Best guess at the problem source, and then test your guess. So we're going to interview, establish a theory, test the theory, test your guess. Is your guess confirmed, yes or no? If it's no, give up. If you give up, you might as well submit your resignation, because that's what they hired you to do. There is, particularly in the Windows world, lots of help available on the Internet. If you've got a problem in Windows, I would just about guarantee that you're not first, unless something really unusual has happened to you. So it's something that or something similar to that has happened to other people. You can look in the logs, and you can see if there is help from Microsoft. Sometimes there is, based on the error number that comes up. Sometimes there isn't. Say again? Normally give you error code. Error code, yeah, and you may be able to find out what I'm talking about in the log. And sometimes it's request additional assistance or look for additional whatever, and it'll actually link to the Internet to something that may discuss that error when we do those things. So if we give up, yes, what does that say? Escalate. Escalate. Resign. Now, escalate. If you have a help desk, a scaled help desk, then you got level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you've got. I can't fix it. I'm going to send it to the next level of help desk. Then we stop. Test your guess. Is it confirmed? If it's yes, plan the fix and resolve the problem. Planning the fix, you say, oh, I'm just going to fix it. Well, it may be. Fix the problem. After you fix the problem, verify that it works. Is the problem solved? Yes. Could this problem have been prevented? Yes or no? If it's yes, take preventive action, and then document the findings. Document the findings, document the anything, I think, is what most of us do the worst. What did I do? How did I get there? And then when you document the findings, where are you going to store it? How are you going to make the findings available to other users? That's not discussed there, but you need to think about those kinds of things when you're in an organization. How are you going to share it with everybody else? There may be something set up in your help desk, in your documentation, or in your procedures that allow that, but once that happens, you do need to share it. 13 rules introduced throughout the chapter that might be useful in troubleshooting. Rule number 1, approach the problem systematically. Don't just start ripping things apart. Don't just start uninstalling things. Start at the beginning and walk through it carefully. Remember, back to the hardware portion, this is all a modular system. There's a cause and effect. Software is going to have a cause and effect also. We looked at, I think, briefly a little bit of the registry. There's some cause and effect in there. Different things can cause different actions and reactions. Start at the beginning, walk it through. If you find more than one problem on the same computer, work on only one problem at a time. Guilty of not doing this very well. You do 2 or 3 things. You should only do one thing at a time. You do 2 or 3 things and it's fixed. Which one fixed it? I don't know, because the other ones that didn't fix it may have unfixed something else. Do one thing at a time. It's much slower, but once you get it resolved, you'll know what caused it to be resolved. Some possible questions: describe the problem. What error messages, unusual displays? What are you seeing on the screen? Those kinds of things. When did you first notice it? Questions like that. When did the problem start? What was the situation when the problem occurred? I was installing, I was working on a document, I was reading my email, I was at a website, Java app just started, those kinds of things.
I mean, at offices that sit around and they go on their Facebook or something like that, and they're not supposed to go on Facebook.
Yep, some people.
They go link it.
Some people do. Yep, some people do that, and that's what policies are about.
There's people who try to get around those.
People always try to get around those. I had a guy in a router class one time fail a router's class because he spent over half the class every day trying to find an open proxy server that he could get to an email account with. As soon as he found one, I just go look at his history and put it in the prohibited list. So the next day he'd spend another half day in class trying to, I mean, what's so important that you can't go 5 hours without reading your email? I mean, yes, they're always trying to do that. We have, I think, and it comes and it goes because they keep adding addresses, Facebook's available in the library, right? You can't go on ESPN on these computers. You can't go, that's true. You can't go on ESPN. Why? Because you're supposed to be in class. Paying attention, not watching the football game or figuring out the scores or updating your fantasy team. The real reason was bandwidth originally. The what? Bandwidth. What's that? Bandwidth, what's that? How much data you get. How much data you get.
Well, that doesn't make much sense because you can get on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. But there wasn't a YouTube then. Some of these things that are configured are pretty old. Wouldn't let you. Buddy Chu, I can tell you who. Because I was here when we did it.
He was the cause.
Nah, he just understood what was going on. Kind of. You get a blue screen on ESPN, right? Or a red one. The red ones are bad. The blue ones are not so bad. The red ones really were designed for the porn sites and things like that. And they're all based on as you go through the networking curriculum, we'll try to go through how that works and why it's that way. Why would we not want somebody in business at ESPN? You don't know? Because I'm not paying them $100 an hour to update their fantasy team. I'm paying them to do a job. Why wouldn't I want them on Facebook?
To do anything.
Because they'll be on Facebook forever.
Too much
They've got those games on Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account. My wife does. But they have those games. You hate those games. But the nurses all got hung up on Farmville. So you know what they were doing during class? Farming. Okay, now you're going to go to the doctor. You're going to go to the doctor, and you're going to get a nurse that instead of paying attention in nursing class was farming. Keith, how's that going to make you feel?
How does this needle go?
That's right.
How much do I give you?
It may sound silly, but yeah, there typically are reasons for everything that happens. It may not be valid still, but there are reasons. Why do I give quizzes at the beginning and the end of each class? One to get you here, one to keep you here. So you don't skip out of class. And if I get real lonely in the middle, I can generate one in about 2.5 minutes.
I got a problem with the quiz.
We'll get there. What changes have recently been made to the system? Have there been recent thunderstorm or electrical problem? All of those different things you need to look at. Yeah, well, one of the things is, did somebody just trip over your network cable?
What you supposed to trip over?
The truth.
Your computer's just dumb more than buy new?
Did what?
The hard drive is fried.
That could be. Well, if that's the case, that's what you tell them. I said, well, are you going to tell them? Oh, I could.
Okay, so do they pay you for a diagnosis or they just...
Depends on how you set up. No, you're talking about the business end. I'm talking about the troubleshooting end. Right now, you're being paid a salary by your company to do these things. If you're doing it as a business, you're going to have to make that decision and make it clear to people what you charge for a diagnosis, and then an estimate. Do you give free estimates? A lot of people give free estimates. It's up to you. That's a decision, a business decision that you have to make. Have you made any hardware or software changes? Did you install anything? Did you change anything? Oh yeah, I put in new memory and it doesn't, and then it just beeps constantly after I put in this new memory, right? Well, you guys know what that does because we've done that one before. Somebody else used your computer recently, and did they go to virus.com? All those things, did it happen? Is there some valuable data on your system that is not backed up? The pictures of your whole child's childhood.
What about passwords?
What about passwords?
Well, I know on a BlackBerry, you can put all your passwords in one password box and just type in one for every...
But that's not this. That's not this. Huh? You can do that with a computer, but that's not what we're talking about here. Passwords, you can put them all in. There are lots of password managers, but that's probably not going to cause any of these symptoms. What that's going to keep you from doing is logging in, and it'll be really clear that your password is wrong. And generally, that password is not going to be stored in the password packet, is it? Because you got to get on the computer to use the software to get on the website. True? So troubleshooting the computer now in an application might be significant. Do you have the wrong password? Those kinds of things. But those are usually pretty obvious too. They'll tell you that in no uncertain terms. You always ask them for the password and then tell them to reset it once you're done. You can't get to them. A lot of times they'll bring them in and ask you to crack them. One of the things that is happening, and not here necessarily, but in some of the bigger cities, people are stealing laptops and then take them into these computer repair shops and saying, I forgot my password, would you reset it for me? So they can get down to it, see what's on it, maybe sell it. So you have to be real careful about that. Somebody brings something in and says, hey, this is, how do you know it's their laptop? Kind of deal.
Isn't there Bojack or something like that?
There are a lot of things that will do it. There's the password reset. There's an NT password reset program that's available that you can use. There are a number of password reset programs. Are you going to do it for them is the question. Some people ask them to prove to me that it's your laptop. I'm not telling you right or wrong. I'm just telling you some of the things that you may encounter when you do these things. Is there valuable data? If so, back it up. If it's not been backed up, go ahead and back it up before you start. Can you show me how to reproduce the problem? Can you make it happen again? The most difficult thing to troubleshoot is, no, I don't know, but something that's not consistent, that's not reproducible. If you can't reproduce it, how do you know what happens? It's really difficult to do that. I got a car that the air conditioner doesn't work sometimes, only when it's hot. I made an appointment to take it in, and then the air conditioner started working. Well, what good does it do me to take it in and say the air conditioner doesn't work? They're just going to say, oh, it's working fine. And it was at the time. And then 2 days later, it's not working. You're ready to take it in, it starts working again. How do you troubleshoot those things? That's very difficult. Reproducible, the ability to reproduce the errors is something that's pretty critical. Establish your priorities. Decide what your priority is. What are you going to do with this thing? When practical, ask for help in deciding the priorities. What are we going to do with it? Beware of user error, and this is the one that you really kind of got to tread lightly on. It's the IDT10 error. Spell ID10T. ID10T. What does it look like? I don't know. ID10. The ID10T error. Be careful.
Did they do that on purpose?
Of course they did that on purpose. We've got an ID10T error back here. Ask the user to show you the problem and watch. There have been issues where talk to them on the phone, reboot the machine. Okay, I rebooted the machine, it's still the same. Well, hey, there wasn't enough time. What they were doing was, when him logging off, just turn the monitor off and on. That's why sometimes you really need to watch what's going on. There are remote management softwares that you can install that allows you to do that. We used to do that at Blue Ridge. We use VNC, which is open source and free. A lot of virus checkers don't like it, but as far as I can tell, it's not a whole lot long. They call it a hacking tool, which it kind of is, because once you get it on the machine, you can control it. But what you could do would be to ask the user to show you, and you can watch on your monitor, ask the user to show you what they were doing so you can watch it. If you couldn't get anywhere, you could ask to take control, and they could give you control. You could always force control if you really needed to. But you could then watch them remotely what they were doing on the system so that you could see, ask, and watch at the same time. Keep your cool, don't rush. Keep your cool because you're going to get some really strange answers. You're also going to get some really irritable people at times. Step 1, interview the user and back up the data. Here, we're going to the next level of these things. Back up the important data. If the computer won't boot to the Windows desktop, use Windows Explorer to copy the files to a flash drive. you can important stuff as long as the hard drive is working. There are adapters that you can get for both IDE and serial ATA. You could physically take the hard drive out, connect it to a USB adapter, and copy the important files. Remember, the thing that we really want to back up that we're trying to save is the data. The programs we own, programs we can reinstall. Data is the thing that makes the business work. Data is the thing that's going to keep the business in business, and if you lose it, data is going to be the thing that puts the business out of business. Well, 90%, I think it's 90%, maybe it's 80%, of the companies that lose all their data within 2 years are out of business. So backing up is a big deal. It really is a big deal. Most of us don't do very well. Well, I hate the hassle of doing it. They've tried and tried and tried. The replication, the outside replication makes it so easy, it's silly not to do it once you get the initial replication done, because the only thing you're replicating, the only thing you're moving in are the changes. The initial replication can take some time. Yeah, silly. It's a pain to do a real backup. And then you got to take the tape, because tape's the typical thing that you use, someplace else, because it should be off-site. Same thing, if the fire flood, truck driver drives through your house, whatever, if everything's there together, then you lost everything together. Backups are for disaster recovery, and what I say in the other classes, and as you get there, you'll hear it again, disaster doesn't mean you came to work and the computer wouldn't start. Disaster means you came to work and then there was no work there. The building's gone. That's a disaster. And it's not just somebody blowing stuff up. What about fire? What if the sprinkler system goes off? Oh yeah, we have a sprinkler system. That's what all those little caps on the ceiling are about. That's the sprinklers. Oh yeah. What if the sprinkler system goes off? What's that going to do to all the electronics? It's not going to be pretty, because I think it's a wet system and I don't think it's been flushed in about 15 years.
That's not good.
No, that's not good.
Couldn't that like cause a bigger fire?
What, water?
And electronics?
Not really, because if you get electronics wet, what's the first thing that happens? It's going to short out. It's going to trip the breaker. What it's going to do is ruin the electronics, typically.
You might feel a little tingle before it trips.
You might feel a little tingle, yeah, but don't touch it. Those things are, and that's just for back up the data. Not trying to be anything but back up the data. Back up your own data. Make no assumptions. Hard set rule to follow. Do your own investigation. This happened before, and I know exactly what it is. It may be different this time. Follow the steps. Figure out what really happened to the system. Try the simple things first. There is, years ago I had to take, in one of the certifications, and it was a NetWare cert, a troubleshooting sort of thing. It said that, and they'll come up with, try the simple things first. I like to try the simple things first. If you had something that takes 10 minutes and has a 5% probability of fixing the problem, and something else that takes 2 hours and has a 80% probability of fixing the problem, which one are you going to do first? You do the 10-minute one. 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a low probability, but if it fixes it, you've only done 10 minutes. The other one is, you take 2 hours, there's a 20% probability you didn't fix the problem. Do the simple things first. Do the quick, simple things first before you go into the more involved. Because if they fix them, you're out of there. And then you can send them a big bill. Keith.
Pay for your ESPN.
Pay for your ESPN so that you can get it for, yeah, no. Examine the system, make your best guesses, reproduce the problem, decide if the problem is hardware or software related. Sometimes they're so close together that's difficult to determine, although hardware problems generally show up with, it just won't go. You've seen some of those. And hopefully the hardware problem is going to yell at us and tell us what's wrong with it. Software may or may not do that. Make the best guess. The video doesn't work. A best guess is that the monitor cables are loose. Or, back to the questioning, they found this really cool video driver that has now put your video out of business. It's not always that. This was a network administrator. Video driver, supposed to be the video driver for this particular adapter. He downloaded it, installed it, and got a black screen. On a server. Now what? Take what out? Video card. Now I really got a black screen if I take the video card out. It wasn't an old video card, it was a new driver. Same video card. That's why you back up everything before you add it. What's the answer out of this one? What's the quick answer out of this one? Uninstall it, put it, but there is no other one. I'm going to roll it back. Well, I can't roll it back because I can't see it. I can't see it.
You have to, that's why you try to keep a spare server around.
Keep a spare server around, but how can I fix this one? It's a simple fix. I restart it, use the F8 key, the advanced boot options. Last known good configuration. Last known good configuration is the driver set, the whole set, the registry set where you last successfully logged into the machine. Well, the last time I successfully logged in, the old driver was there. So if I use the last known good configuration, it comes right back.
So you push F8 and enter it.
F8, when you start it up, F8 key will give you the advanced boot configuration, and one of the options in there is last known good configuration. Safe, you could go to safe mode and roll back the driver too, but it's quicker to go to last known good configuration because when you get online, you're online. You don't have to shut down from safe mode and restart it. Those are the kinds of questions that Microsoft likes to ask. How do you fix it? The most administratively efficient or something like that, the most efficient manner. They'll give you 2 or 3 different answers that are correct that will fix it, but they want to know which one is the best answer. A+ does that sometimes too. You'll see them that have 3 or 4, 2 or 3 correct answers, but they want the most correct answer. Microsoft's got their own certifications. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Well, there are tons of certifications. You got A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Linux Plus, Server Plus, and those are the CompTIA ones. You've got Cisco, CCNA, CCNA Security, CCNA Wireless, CCNA Voice, and then once you move up a level, you got CCNP for all those. And if you really want to spend some money and time, you can become a CCIE, and that's Cisco. Then we've got wireless certifications. Then we got ethical hacker certifications. So you go on and on and on and on and on of what's available. There's certification available for everything, I think. And they're all vendor. A+ is vendor neutral. The rest of them are vendor specific. VMware has theirs. EMC, the storage people, have theirs. There are bunches of those available. Search the manufacturer's websites for help with these things. Again, if you are having a problem with Windows, you're probably not first. You're probably going to be able to find things at the manufacturer site, at the software site, discussion boards, lots of different places, lots of different help available. Sometimes you do have to be careful that you're getting a valid site. Don't just download stuff and say this is going to fix it, because what you may be downloading is something to make it worse. Test your theory. Video doesn't work and you suspect a loose cable, check the connection, discover it. Test your theory. Test what you've, after all of your investigation, test what's going on with it. Incorrect guess. CD drive won't read a CD. Suspect a scratch CD. It looks fine. Next guess is that the CD itself is dirty, and the lenses for the lasers do get dirt, particularly if they're in an environment where people that smoke. There are lens cleaning CDs, DVDs. They're really kind of neat little things. They got little brushes on them when they clean the lens on the on
Like
it.
the little thing that you put in your DVD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do they make Blu-rays for computers?
Do they make
Blu-rays
for?
computers?
Yeah.
Do they use, is that a laser or?
Yeah, it's a laser. Blue laser razor. A laser.
Blu-ray.
Yeah. Anyhow. Divide and conquer, isolate the problem, remove one hardware or software component at a time. This is something that we've tried to teach for years. Actually, instead of removing one at a time, probably the easiest thing is take everything out and put them back in one at a time. And when it fails, the last thing you put in is the one that is the problem. You probably will have some guesses about what the issue is with these things, but one at a time, divide and conquer. When to stop all non-essential services running in the background. The quickest way to stop all non-essential services running in the background is to boot it in safe mode. Minimal driver set. Does it work in safe mode? Yep. Then we can try to disable the equipment one at a time. If it doesn't work in safe mode, we've got some other issues because there's not much in the driver world that loads into safe mode at all. Boot from a CD or DVD to eliminate the operating system in the hard drive. And this would be checking the hardware. So if there are a lot of, and Linux are the most popular bootable CDs or a bootable USB drive in order to check, and that would be checking the hardware so that we're not worried about the operating system that's involved on it. Windows in safe mode, write things down, take notes, draw diagrams, and hopefully the first half of this 2-half course. Huh? Well, as you're changing things, these are one of the things. Test your theory. You should have done that when you were doing the questioning. Absolutely, yeah. With this, now we're testing the theory. Draw the diagrams. Make notes. What did you do, and what were the results, so that you know what you did. Don't assume the worst. When you're doing hard drive's not working, don't assume that the data is lost. If the hard drive is spinning, there are a number of softwares that are available that will allow you to recover the data if you need to do that. I've done that a couple of times. Once with the pressure on, and I recovered 190 gigs of data from a hard drive that had no partitioning information on it. It's not quick, but it can be done. There are softwares available. They're generally not all that expensive to do that. Maybe a business for you, huh? Recovering data for people. Reboot and start over, take a break, walk away from the problem. And sometimes you do just need to walk away. And if you walk away and get away from it, you may have one of these epiphanies, yeah. A resolution moment. Plan your solution, the least invasive first, fix the problem so the system returns to normal working condition with the least amount of effort. Mostly we'd like for it to return to working condition with any amount of effort. Just work, right? Know your starting point. Find out what works and doesn't work before you take anything apart with these things. Step 4, plan your solution and fix the problem. Consider the different solutions before applying it. Determine what works and doesn't, then fix the problem. And then after we fix the problem, we're going to verify it, test the fix, and after have the user check everything. And this is probably a pretty important one. Have the user check everything. Because you start up and it works for you, you walk away and they're going to say, still don't work for me. Be sure that they see it work, they make it work before you leave, particularly if you're doing it in a business. Say again? And then document what happened, help troubleshooting, train others, let other people know what happened here. If you're in a company, this may be something that's going to happen more than once.
Isn't it good to save all the stuff you wrote? Save
save all the stuff you wrote.
Save all the stuff you wrote. And that's what I was saying earlier. Save all the stuff you wrote, all the documentation. How are you going to share that? That's something that you as an individual, and if you're in a company, you as a company are going to have to decide how to share that information. And you really do want to share it.
Will you also share that information on to like back on the internet to others?
You certainly can. You can share it to others on the internet. There are a number of blogs. Petri, P-E-T-R-I, and I think it's .com, has a tremendous knowledge base. They're a British company as far as I can tell. But they have a Windows knowledge base that really helps solve an awful lot of problems.
Your company will also have protocols with that too.
Protocols. Your company may have a knowledge base where you share the stuff. There may be a central location that you share it, that somebody's responsible for analyzing it and classifying it and distributing it and those kinds of things. If you're in business for yourself, you need to write it down so that the next time you've got a better starting point for troubleshooting what's going on. Help desk to record the information. Some do, some don't. SpiceWorks, and this is SpiceWorks over here, is a piece of software that's free. It's really kind of neat. It'll do inventories. It'll do a lot of things. It also has a help desk component to it that you can use for people to request, report problems, those sorts of things. Help desk software allows you to create, edit, and close tickets. And the only reason I think that SpiceWorks it is free. Blue screen. When a process is running in kernel mode, encounter a problem, and Windows must stop. Remember, kernel mode is the one that gets direct access to hardware. Blue screen of death because it's a blue screen, BSOD. Really not anything you ever want to see. Stop error will be there with a specific number. The error at the bottom will help with troubleshooting. You can put it in, go to the internet, and see what's causing that. If you can see it, what you'll probably have to do is go into the advanced configurations and tell it to not stop on all errors, or to stop on all errors, because the default, or not reboot, the default is to reboot on errors, so it's going to keep trying to do that. You get into a reboot cycle, you can't read the errors. Makes it kind of difficult to troubleshoot. This is what one looks like. Bad pool header would be the error, but this thing in the reboot cycle isn't going to stay available to you for very long. That's why you want to stop it on reboot and let it sit there on the error screen so that you can read what's going on. It's got technical information down here. What it usually says is, oh, we got a problem here. If you changed anything, let us know. Change it back, kind of deal. And then your computer is unable to start. Do you want it to fix itself? And Keith fixed itself the other day. It happens sometimes. Device driver, what this all says is that if you just change something, change it back. Because typically these things are going to be hardware induced. Check the event viewer, check archive messages in the Action Center to see what is going on. One of the things, and I'll admit guilt, that I don't do first is go to the logs. One of the first places you should go to are the logs, because they'll tell you an awful lot about what has happened to the system. So use those things. They're there. Might as well read them. No need in having them if you're not going to read them, if you're not going to use them. Improper shutdown, Windows update to apply patches, undo any recent changes, with blue screen errors after a startup, if you can get there. The memory diagnostic tool, and they've got an activity to do that in the lab. Check disk /R, the R is to repair any errors, is something that really might help a lot, because some of these things are caused by disk errors, and this will fix the disk errors. I've seen that work more times than let me fix it myself. /R. And you can check CHKDSK / and you can see which ones. There's one to just tell you about the errors, but what you want to do is repair the errors. So look at the switches before you do those things. Drive is locked. There are ways around that, but that's kind of an unusual thing. What you have to do is unlock it, and you have to go to command line in order to do those to do that. I've seen a procedure. I don't have it in my head, but I've seen a procedure to do that. That's something that's occasional. 32-bit, 64-bit patches. 32-bit patch for the 32-bit installation, 64-bit for the 64-bit. Nothing really mystical or magical there, I don't think. x86 32-bit hardware are hybrid processors. The term x86-64 refers to these processors and also may refer to the 64-bit OS, which means that x86-64 it can be a 64-bit, but it can also you can install a 32-bit operating system on it. There are some machines, and I'm not sure. I think these machines are 64-bit hardware, but they've got a 32-bit operating system on it. And I probably have said that before, because when we installed it, we didn't have those. IA is the Itanium, the Intel processors, 64-bit operating system. I guess we're going to beat these to death. Memory diagnostics, memory problems. There is a Windows memory diagnostic test that you can run from the boot manager. There's also a command line, and there is a lab for the command line to run it, to check the Windows memory. It will go through and run an actual memory diagnostic on your memory to see if that's the issue. Force Windows into the boot manager, a space bar during startup. If we had more than one operating system here in a dual boot environment, they'd both be listed, and you can pick the one that you want. You can configure Windows to boot to whichever one that you want. You've seen that one before, know what you need, repair your computer. If you go to repair your computer, you'll have some options, one of which is to restore it if you have a backup. If you've made a backup, you can then point to the backup and it will restore that backup without starting the operating system. System File Checker, SFC. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because when we get to the Windows classes, you'll get more than you want on some of these tools. What the System File Checker does with the scan now, it checks the operating system files to see if they're damaged, and if they are, it'll repair them. If they've been replaced or damaged. Something that, I don't know, maybe you want to do occasionally, particularly if you've been someplace that you suspect, and hopefully nothing's going to happen like that with all the other system checks that are in there, that somebody has damaged or replaced one of your system files, and what it'll do is check that, and if it's been replaced, it'll put the proper ones back in. Hardware can cause these errors, improper shutdowns, and usually what causes my improper shutdowns is me being impatient and holding the power button until it decides to shut down for me. Memory, motherboards, CPU, video, system overheating, the things that we talked about in the hardware portion of the class. Check the event viewer, apply the Windows patches, use the memory diagnostic. If overheating is suspected, go to the BIOS, set up, check the temperatures, use canned air to blow all the dirt out, open it up, clean it out with the canned air so that we make those things go away. The endless shutdowns, this is in the advanced portion, and in the startup and recovery, probably difficult to see, but one of the things here, this checkbox here says automatically restart. So if there's an error, and this is on the error, system failure, automatically restart. This is the one that you've got to uncheck so that you can be able to see that blue screen of death. It's very difficult at times to do those things. Boot in safe mode, where you can change the Windows setting if you're in this. Safe mode, typically the restart's going to be caused by something loading in the full load. Drivers are one of the big things that cause us issues. Application problems can be caused by application of hardware, operating system, data, other things, and, of course, our friends, the user. Users, again, you've got to kind of be delicate with those things. What? Why don't they call them guests?
You know how you say the main user and then you say guest. You know what I'm saying?
I'm probably going to not spend a lot of time. The steps for solving application errors are going to be about the same. So we're going to interview the user, reproduce it, reboot, what's going on. Same thing that we did before. Error messages, check the action center, and the logs to see what has happened with these things. The action center, address problem, you'll get some issues here. If something that really needs your attention at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll have a little flag, and it's probably going to be red. It tells you to go check the action center. The web logs might help. Search the web for help. The event viewer and reliability monitor, look for clues, things that we have looked at recently. The reliability monitor is something that it's going to show you maybe show you when this thing started. Is the data or application corrupted? Outside interference. Never could be a virus, right? System resources might be low, not enough memory. Those are things that you can all check with the built-in tools. You can go through Task Manager and the Resource Monitor to see what's being used. Bad memory could be an issue, corrupted hard drive, background program conflicting with the application, what's running, what's not running, what's starting up, what's not starting up. All your resources going away. What's the user running? Are they loading down the machine? This machine that I use is pretty slow. It's got quite a bit of memory, but it's got an awful lot of stuff running on it at any given time because it's kind of the experimental machine. We want to try this out, so they put it on this machine. They never take it off, but they put it on. So as a result, it's now got a lot of things going on it. Consider Windows might be the problem. System file checkers, restore, check disk, defrag, all those things that we've talked about, try them out too. Windows could be the issue. Sometimes a simple reboot will help with Windows too. Sometimes a shut down, power off for a few minutes and then a restart will help. Give the memory a chance to bleed down. Task Manager, if an application hangs, use Task Manager to delete it. It may take a while to get there, but eventually you should be able to get the Task Manager, right-click on it, and stop the process. We've looked at that before. Kill the process. You can use Task Kill, which is kind of a mimicking of the Linux task kill, but this does work. I've had to use this before. When my son was a teenager, I know I keep telling stories on it. Their big thing was AOL Instant Messenger. Well, I put him on a proxy server. The problem was once you got AOL Instant Messenger going, you turn that proxy off, it didn't matter because I already had an established connection. So what you had to do was turn the proxy off and then kill the application. And when you restarted it, you couldn't get back on. So task kill also, but you have to know, go back to it just a second. Task kill, more to list the processings, note the PID, but you can kill tasks with this thing, but you're going to have to know what the task is before you can do that. Specific error messages, what doesn't open, the application is not installed for the file extension, the file extension is wrong. You can change the associations. What the association is just simply tells the system what program to use to open that file type. Data open base, DOBC, connectivity databases, anything from Access to SQL can be a DOBC, a database with these things. When a service fails, can be caused by lots of different things, and again, Check the services console, use the services properties, Windows Explorer to make sure that the program file is not missing. Somebody may have uninstalled it. It may have just gotten lost in the everything else that Windows does. A DLL is missing, and a dynamic link library, if it's missing, usually you're going to get an error that says that a specific DLL was called and it wasn't there. If that's the case, you may need to reinstall the application, recover from backup. What might happen, has happened, is not supposed to happen anymore, is you install one program and then you install another program and it stops the first one from running. What has happened there is a DLL from the second one has overwritten a DLL from the first one. So it doesn't happen. You'll have to reinstall the first one in order to recover from that typically. Windows is supposed to do DLL mapping right now that prevents that. Component services, those are really getting down into the weeds. An application has never worked, update Windows, run the installation program again. Does it work? And is it something that's compatible with that particular version? And that brings us to compatibility mode. What that allows us to do is show a digital signature, but compatibility mode allows us to run it at some other Windows level. You can compatibility mode, you can run it as a Windows 95 or Windows XP or whatever else. So there are a number of tools in the summary, lots of tools that are available, the 6-step process, and for doing things, and that really is a good 6-step process, and for testing purposes also on the certification, you'll need to know those. Blue screen of death errors, this is one that you're probably not first. Recovery probabilities from blue screen of death errors are, I don't think, real high. Because that usually, when you get the blue screen of death, it's usually a pretty serious problem with the system. 32-bit and 64-bit operating system. System file checker to check the system files, the Windows file, if you have a problem with those. The error messages and the logs can help you. Backups, be sure you have backups of the data. If you have a backup of the entire system, you can boot to the DVD and restore it from the repair disk link. Use the patches. And as Joseph found out, it takes a long time if it's the first time. It's go forever. They really do go a long time. There's lots and lots of updates.
I have been on 117 for the full length.
117 for the full length of this class. Well, that's good. Then you can pay attention. Are there questions? Ready to take a break?